A few months ago, one of the richest men alive sat down on television and told you this thing you're about to learn isn't real. No truth to it, he said. And yet right now, in Washington, lawmakers are scrambling to write a brand new law to make it illegal. So which is it? Because you cannot ban something that doesn't exist. Here is what he'd rather you never sat with for too long. The wealthiest people in this country can spend hundreds of millions of dollars a year, live like kings, and pay almost nothing in income tax. Not by cheating, by quietly following 3 rules the rest of us were never taught. Buy, borrow, die. Stay with this, and by the end you'll understand the game well enough that nobody can ever run it on you again. Start with the part that trips everyone up. You've been taught that rich people are rich because they earn giant paychecks. That's the story. It's also wrong. A paycheck is the one kind of money the government taxes the hardest and the fastest. The moment it hits your account, a cut comes off the top. You never even see it. So the people at the very top learn the oldest trick in any protection racket. Don't get caught holding the thing that gets taxed. If a paycheck is what gets taxed, then simply stop taking a paycheck. That's the whole game in one sentence. And it has 3 moves. Move 1. Buy. You take your money and you put it into things that grow in value on their own. Stock in companies, real estate, whole businesses, things that quietly get worth more while you sleep. Now here's the piece almost nobody understands. When something you own goes up in value, that gain is invisible to the tax man. It doesn't count as income, not $1 of it. The government only wants its cut at the exact moment you sell and turn that growth into cash in your hand. That's called a capital gain, which is just a fancy way of saying the profit you make when you sell something for more than you paid. And there's a tax on it. But notice the trap the tax man built for himself. He can only collect when you sell. So what happens if you simply never sell? Hold on to that question, because underneath these 3 moves there's a quieter one doing most of the real work, and we're going to come back to it. If you never sell, you never trigger the tax. Your fortune can balloon from 10 million to 100 million to $1 billion, and on paper you owe nothing, because on paper you haven't made a single dollar of income. You just own things, very valuable things. But this creates an obvious problem, and it's probably the one you're thinking right now. If these people never sell anything, how do they actually get money to live on? How do you buy the yacht, the jet, the 5th house, if selling is off the table? That brings us to move 2. Borrow. And this is where the whole thing turns from clever into almost beautiful, in the way a perfectly planned heist is beautiful. You don't sell your stock. You walk into a private bank, and you use that stock as collateral, which just means you promise it to the bank as a guarantee. And the bank hands you a loan. A huge one. Cash, right now, to spend on anything you want. The rich have a name for this. They call it a securities-backed line of credit, which is a long way of saying a loan with your stocks pinned down as the promise. And here is the magic word. A loan is not income. Borrowed money has never been taxed, anywhere, ever. When you take out a car loan, the government doesn't tax the money the bank gives you, because you have to pay it back. Same rule for a billionaire. Except a billionaire borrowing against a mountain of stock pays a tiny interest rate the rest of us will never see, and never has to actually pay the loan off. He just borrows again next year against a fortune that keeps growing faster than the interest piles up. So you get to spend millions, live enormous, and in the eyes of the tax man you earn nothing. You just borrowed. Follow the cut here, because it matters. The bank is thrilled. It collects safe, steady interest from the safest customer alive. The billionaire is thrilled. He's got cash and a 0 tax bill. The only one left out of the room is you, the ordinary taxpayer, quietly covering the roads and the schools and the army with the cut taken off your paycheck. But borrowing has one loose end. Loans have to be paid back eventually. And more than that, all those invisible gains, all that growth you never sold, that tax bill is technically still sitting there, waiting. It didn't disappear. It's just parked. So how does the family finally settle the account without ever paying it? They don't. That's move 3. Die. And this is the coldest, quietest, most elegant part of the entire machine. When a person dies in America and passes their assets to their kids, something happens in the tax code that most people have never heard of. It's called stepped-up basis, buried in the law as Section 1014. Here's what it does, in plain words. The tax man had been keeping score of how much your stock grew over your whole life, so he could one day collect on it. At the moment of death, that scoreboard gets wiped clean, reset to 0. The kids inherit the stock as if they bought it that day, at that day's price. All the growth, the decades of it, the invisible gain the tax man was patiently waiting to tax, gone. Erased. Never collected. Not deferred, not delayed. Killed. The debt to the government dies with the body. The heirs quietly sell just enough stock to pay off the old loans. Owe almost nothing because their scoreboard started at zero, and keep the rest. And then they start the exact same 3 moves over again. Buy, borrow, die. It's not a trick you pull once. It's the family business, passed down like a name. The man who put a name to all of this is a law professor at the University of Southern California named Edward McCaffrey. He's been describing this loop for decades, and his line cuts straight through it. He said, once you're already rich, it's simple, it's easy. It's just buy, borrow, die. He wasn't warning the wealthy. He was warning the rest of us that the game was already being played, in plain sight, in the open, entirely legal. Now, if the story ended there, you'd walk away angry and clear. But here's where it gets more interesting, because the truth is quieter and stranger than the headline. And this is the loop we left open. Because the loud, dramatic part of this, the billionaire borrowing against his empire, isn't actually where most of the money hides. Researchers at the Tax Policy Center, a respected nonpartisan group in Washington that studies exactly this, went looking for the borrowing. They pulled 2 decades of data on the richest 1% and measured how much these people actually borrow against their fortunes each year. And the number surprised almost everyone. The borrowing, the flashy move to part everyone talks about, came out to only around 1 to 2% of the true income of the very rich. 1 to 2%. The dramatic heist everyone points at is real, but it's small. It's the loud noise in the front room while the real work happens in the back. So what's the real trick? It's quieter and even harder to fight. It's just the first move and the last move, holding hands. Buy and hold. For decades. Never sell. And then die, and let stepped-up basis erase the whole scoreboard. That's it. Most of the wealthy aren't living on giant loans at all. They're simply sitting on fortunes that grow, untouched and untaxed, year after year, and then handing them to their children with the tax bill wiped clean at the grave. The Tax Policy Center's own researchers put it bluntly. The step up at death, they argue, is the piece that's truly indefensible. The borrowing gets the outrage. The dying gets the money. That's the part the headline never tells you. And it's the part that's almost impossible to catch, because you can't tax a sale that never happens, and you can't easily tax a fortune that just sits there, quietly growing in the dark. Which finally explains the strange scene we started with. A man worth more than most countries, going on television to tell you this whole thing isn't real, there's no truth to it. And at the very same moment, in Washington, senators drafting laws to kill it. Senator Ron Wyden has been pushing something he calls the billionaire's income tax, an attempt to finally tax those invisible gains before death, to force the scoreboard to count while the person is still alive. Governors are calling to ban the strategy outright. You don't write a law to ban a ghost. You write it to ban something that works, so while the people using it would rather you believe it was a myth. The denial isn't a contradiction. The denial is the last move. Because the quietest way to protect a game is to convince everyone watching that there's no game at all. So where does that leave you? You probably don't own a mountain of stock a private bank will lend millions against. That's real, and it's not fair, and pretending otherwise would be an insult. But understanding the game changes what you do with the small moves you can make. It's why holding a good investment for the long haul beats trading in and out and handing the taxman a cut every single time. It's why the wealthy obsess over what they own, not what they earn. It's why the tax code rewards the patient and the quiet, and quietly punishes the paycheck. You were never taught this in school. That was not an accident. The game works best when the people paying for it never learn the rules. If this pulled the curtain back even an inch, then you're exactly the kind of person this channel is built for. The kind who would rather understand how the machine really works than stay comfortable not knowing. Subscribe and stay in the room, because next time we're following the money into the private bank itself to answer the question we only cracked open today. How does an ordinary person get anywhere near the kind of loan that lets the rich spend without ever selling? And where's the line where that same move stops being clever and starts being a trap? You'll want to know that before you ever need it. Because remember how this started. One of the richest men alive looked into a camera and swore this thing wasn't real, and was counting on you never learning the 3 rules. Now you know them. Buy, borrow, die. And now it can't be run on you again.